Hey everyone, welcome to 49 Sports Games. I'm Grant, and this is being recorded and streamed live on January the 13th, 2026. Wow. I'm not sure if I said 2026. Written it a few times, but now I know I've said it. Uh, Pardon the glare on the new glasses, but I need to be able to see. So we got glare because we have too many lights floating around here. Tonight, though, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about much. One little housekeeping item is all, and then we're going to jump right into playing 49, what for now is drive-by-drive football. And so as you saw from the little intro screen there, the 49 drive-by-drive logo, yes, that is definitely an AI created logo that I touched up in Photoshop. But I went to do my little YouTube banner. I think it's called a thumbnail, and I didn't really have a logo or anything for it. So I thought, well, I haven't really picked out a name exactly. So that's what I came up with. Anyway, for those of you interested in what AI can do and how quickly it can do it, that's it. Uh, so the other housekeeping item, oh yeah, next week, Marcia and I are going to be heading out. We got an opportunity to go on a last minute trip. So there'll be no cast stream or whatever you want to call it next Tuesday. So the 20th, but should be back for the 27th if all goes well. Actually, you know what? If all goes well, I won't be back on the 27th because we'll still be off having fun somewhere. But the way it looks like right now, we'll be back on the 27th. And you know, it's speaking of names, Chris had an idea that he posted last week in the comments from the after the stream, and that was why use the name Drive because it seems like that's a name that a lot of other people have used, and made me think, yeah, I love thinking outside the box like that. I don't know what that name's going to finally be, but I love having input like that because, who knows how far that's going to go. It might come into it. Maybe we don't use drive or drive by drive or quick drive or drive time or drive away or drive somewhere. I don't know what it's going to be. Anyway, always looking for input on that one because that's a tough one. All right. So that's about it for a preamble. Let's head down to the table here and you can see what I've got for, well, you can see from the name there, quick drive football, because once when I created these cards a while ago, that's what I was calling it, quick drive football. Um, I'm not sure about the name quick anymore because we're changing the name of the game to 49 football. So the on the turf football, the quick ducks football, those will be versions within 49 football, but it's going to be 49 football. I'm pretty set on that. And same, with hockey. I think hockey should just be 49 hockey. I think we need to simplify it because the quick part of it really throws people off because there's express games now. And I think express games are awesome and they serve an amazing purpose in this community where we have so many options for games. But I'm not sure that what I'm designing here falls into that express category because there's still a little bit more detail to it because the main purpose behind actually creating this game was so that it would be a companion to both quick deck football and on the turf football. And the companion being that at any time you could jump into the game, one or the other. You go back and forth because you're keeping actual time, not just blocks of time or approximate time. It's actually, and you'll see how that works here in just a minute. That each drive is timed out, and so you're keeping time, and you're actually keeping yardage as well. So we're going to go actual yardage. So there's going to be a starting yard line, there's going to be an ending yard line, and what that allows you to do is create actually stats that have some uh, basis to what you end up with a stat for a drive, for whether it's rushing yards or passing yards. And so, a lot of the express games will come up with a chart, which is just basically the season stats, and you're going to roll against the season stats to get you what they were for that game. And at the end of the season, you should have pretty accurate stats because you're just rolling off of them. Well, anytime you take a game and you start adding some different flavor to it, whether it's dice rolls because the team was running more, passing more, influenced by defense, or that kind of thing, you start to have that you start to lose the ability to make it simple to get stats. But what I've done with this, and I think it'll be for another video, is, and for two reasons. One is I had an Excel spreadsheet And this is what the output of the Excel spreadsheet would look like. And it calculates almost everything for you. And then there was a second page which calculated the number of, and you can see this one here if you look along the top. So this was Washington played Cincinnati. This is a game I played last year. And final was 29-29. So there was the number of drives each team had, the number of plays overall as the game went to overtime. So that's why there's a few extra plays in there. Overall yardage, first downs they had, and then the number of rushing yards they had and the number of passing yards they had. And that was basically came from, and you'll see how this works here in just a minute, on the types of drives that they had, whether it was dominated by run or dominated by pass. So from there, you can break it down into individual players who are maybe playing that game within that drive. And so, somebody like a Mike Ignatossi, who's like amazing with Excel, could really give some great flavor to stats. That's not me, but I'll do my best. Anyway, that is the Excel part of it. And so what this is going to be is just a just quick overview. We'll go through a couple of drives and you'll see how the game works. So we have kicking. Let's go to this drive here. Actually, we'll go right over top. So the kicking charts are exactly the same as they are in the regular football game, either quick decks or on the turf. And you're going to resolve it the same way because it goes so quick. A D20 roll, you see how far the kick goes, a D20 roll, and you can see what the return is. And there's one card you're going to turn over to see if there's a possible penalty or fumble or something like that. Now, you can always use the individual returners as well, if you choose, or you can just go with the generic ones. And then the only other things you need from the team charts are this here. And so you get that glare off, sort of that. Maybe there. How's that? And so you can see the things that are important at this point are the offensive run, offensive pass, the defensive run, defensive pass. We're going to use interception and pass rush and a quarterback sack and interception in the same way that you do with QuickDecks. And so once you've got that data and you're going to transpose it and you're going to put it onto the top of this chart up here, get this light back so you get a little more light on things here. It all gets transposed up along here, and then you don't have to look it up anymore. It's all right there. And so you can see Buffalo run offense was a 10. Is that in focus? I probably got to get my hand out of there to keep it in focus. I'm sorry about that. So that's why we use a pointer. And their pass is a 7. And their defense was a 5 and a 6. I think there actually was a 5 no, it is a 5 and a 6. I thought maybe there was a typo there. And so Denver's is along here now too. And this is important because what's going to happen is after the kickoff, and let's actually do a kickoff here. So Denver's going to kick off. And we're just going to roll a D20 for the kickoff, and it's a 1. And so the kickoff is a 53-yard kickoff. So it's at the 12-yard line. So Buffalo is going to return it, save it at the 12-yard line. And their return is also a 1. And that return is just 14 yards. So 12 and 14 is a 26-yard line. We turn over a card, an action card. So from over here, we're going to turn over an action card to see if there was anything that might have happened on that play regarding to a kickoff. And there's not. It might have been a penalty or a fumble. There's not. So all we're going to do is we're going to put down Buffalo because they've got the ball. A starting yard line. They are at their own. I'll put an O for own 26. And now we're ready to go. So the first thing you're going to do is Buffalo's got possession. So we're looking along the top row here. Again, I got to keep my arm out so we keep focus. And Buffalo is a run more team. So you can see up on the very top here, they are a run more team. And that comes from there. If you look back at their team chart, you can see there if you get the run more, get the glare off of it. So they get the run more, which means we're going to roll a D12 for the start of the drive. 1 to 8 means they're going to be more run dominant on this drive. A 9 to 12 means they're going to be more pass dominant. And so we roll a D12 for them. Let's use this blue dice here because we have blue and an orange. And it's a 10, so they're going to pass more. So this drive, they decided that they need to pass a little bit more. And so their pass rating is a 7. Denver's defensive pass rating is an 8. So we're going to be on this right here, column right here. And now all we're going to do is we're going to roll a D12 for each. So Buffalo's is the blue, Denver's is the orange, and we're going to roll them. And then we're going to see how we did. So we got a 2 for Buffalo and a 5 for Denver. And so they're both within range. So if it's that number, 7 or less for Buffalo, or an 8 or less for Denver, it's within range. So there's 4 options that could come of this, right? Both in range. They could both be out of range. Offense, Buffalo in this case could be in range, or the defense, Denver could be in range. And each one of those has their own outcome and differences in outcome. So as you can imagine, a team that gets an offensive run, they're going to have more chances for touchdowns and longer drives. If a defense gets it, more chance for turnover and 3 and outs. And the other two, they're just a mixed bag. If it's neither gets it or both get it, then it's a mixed bag. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn over an action card and just see if there's anything that may have happened on this play. And that's along that very top cell. And right there, it says there could be a sack. You're going to do a quarterback check. And now these cards aren't finalized. This is all still a work in progress. So just keep that in mind. And so the way a quarterback check works is very similar to QuickDex football. You're going to look at his quarterback, and right along here, this is already calculated. So Buffalo's quarterback sack rating is based on Josh Allen's sack rating, and then Denver's, look at this here. So Josh Allen, his sack rating is a 1 to 5, and Buffalo's pass rush rating is a +3, and then their defensive pass rush is a 1 to 13. So it should be a 5 and 3 is an 8. So there's already a mix up. So this should be a 1 to 8. And then interceptions. Well, let's see if I got it right because I might have messed this up. So there's a 4 for their interception and a -2. So it should be a 1 to 2 is the interception. Yeah, this was supposed to be self-calculating, but of course it's not. So we're just going to fix it as we go here. And then this was a 1 to 13. So we get it right. And we'll flip it around. Well, penalties were a 14. Yep. And their fumble recovery is a 1 to 8. So they're not a 1 to 10, they're a 1 to 8. And so it's just the exact same as QuickDex here. And so we put Denver up now. And we look at Bo Nix's, his sack rating is a 3, +1 is a 4. So his sack here is a 4. And rush is a 1 to 7. Interception is a 3, -1 is a 1 to 2. So it's going to be a tough day for interceptions. Their penalty is a 17, and their fumble recovery rating is also a 1 to 8. So there's the correct data. Okay, probably should have checked that, but I didn't because this is early prototyping and you're seeing this live. Okay, so now we're going to do a sack check. And the way that happens now is we're going to roll a d20 on the sack. So Buffalo's is a 1 to 8. So I'm going to roll. If it's a 1 to 8, that means there's going to be a sack that's influencing this drive. And it's not. It's a 20. So there is no influence. They don't get any influence on it. So now we go to the drive because we see what the result is. Both were in range. So when we turn over this card here, and let me put this down here and pop this up a little higher up. And see if we can see that here. All right, there you go. So you can see there's 4 different options. Defense has control. In this case, it wasn't a good card for them because the offense still picked up 35 yards. Neither team got it, or both teams got it. And there's 20 cards in here. There's one that's got the touchdown on both. So this shows it was a drive for a touchdown. So Buffalo goes 74 yards for a touchdown. And so that's all it takes. So we come back over to here. We've determined that this drive went 74 yards. So Josh Allen had a great first drive. They came out of the gates knowing what they wanted to do. And so now to determine the number of plays, first downs, and the third down, you can see it's really on here already. So the touchdown would have been 10 plays. They had 4 first downs. Yards to go, you're going to roll a D12. There's no yards to go because they scored a touchdown. If they were run dominant, it would have taken 6 minutes and 20 seconds off the clock, but they were passed, so it's 5 minutes and 10 seconds. So time of possession was 5:10. The first downs were 4. Number of plays was 10. And that was a touchdown. And so what I'll do now is subtract. So we started at 15, subtract 510, that takes us down to 950. Nice thing about having the Excel sheet is it would do almost all of that for you. You just put in the data that's on this card and it would calculate everything else for you. Oh, Joey, I need to do better at keeping up with the chat here, you guys. I'm sorry, I kind of get just focused in on what I'm doing. And from my name, I like Joey. Yeah, it's always the full play hockey or highlight hockey. So good way to differentiate it because quick decks, it doesn't fit the name, right? Does it? No, not at all. Okay, yeah, some CFL. Yeah, CFL plays the same way. It's got the same, it's the same flavor and it plays pretty quick too. Uh, no, so the score sheet is actually for the whole game. So there's typically between 20 and 25 possessions in a game. So you use the one score sheet and that'll be for the whole game. And if you want to print it out, if you actually use the Excel version of it, and then you can print it out like these ones here. So you can see this here. This was a whole game. So that was Washington, Cincinnati, another one below it. So Washington, Cincinnati had 30 drives because I think there was a lot of passing in the game. And it also went to overtime. And then here was the Giants and Washington from last year in a game that Washington won 24-14. You can see they each had under 300 yards of passing, but Washington also had almost 100 yards of running, and there were 21 drives in that game. So yeah, the sheet is for the whole game. And so I don't have it here, but there is a way you can determine who scored the touchdown because that particular was because it was a pass. Then there's a chart you're looking can look down on their team chart, and it'll tell you who got the pass because it's not guaranteed it was a pass, but it's like 75% that it's going to be a pass. You're going to roll to see if it was a pass or run, and then you're going to roll to see who actually caught the pass. So you'll be able to come up with who scored the touchdowns. All right, so now we need to do extra point. So we go to Buffalo's kicking, and Buffalo's extra point is we'll say Matt Prater was in, so it's 1-18. Get my finger out of the road again so we can see it. And it's a 9, so he got the extra point. So they got the touchdown, extra point. Visitors is Buffalo, home is Denver, and first drive it's 7-0 for Buffalo. Okay, that's how that works. There's the first drive. So now we're going to go to kickoff. So we'll do Buffalo's going to kick off. So we'll do a roll for them. It's a 19. And a 19 kick is going to be through the end zone. And so we're going to have Denver taking over now at their own 35-yard line. Own 35. And what you do first is roll on the D12 up here to see if they're going to be run dominant or pass dominant. So you roll a D20 and they're a 10. Roll a D12 because that's what you're supposed to do. And it's a 2. And so they're run dominant. And so Denver's run is a 6. Buffalo's defense is a 5. So we're going to roll both. So Buffalo and Denver. Buffalo's looking for a 5 and they got it, or 1. And Denver's looking for a 6 or less and they got it as a 6. So once again, they both have influence on this particular drive. You're going to turn over an action card and see if there's anything in the top here which could influence it. And this one, it is. It's interception, quarterback, plus a defensive check. So again, these cards were written before I just decided to go with a straight quick decks approach to things and have it already on figured out on the chart. So it's a 1-2. So it's not a pretty good chance for Buffalo. It's not a very, it's 10% chance for Buffalo. Let's see if they do a 1-2. And they're rolling 18. So there's no interception. So that card's done. So put that away. And then we turn over the next one. And once again, we look at both because they both had influence. And again, another really good card. And not all these cards are this good. You'll see that there's some cards that are, you're not going to get very many. You get 3 and O's. But you know what? This is pretty typical. Teams usually on their first possession come up with a pretty good game plan. And here they get 68 yards. And that is going to be enough for them to score a touchdown. They needed 65 yards because they started from the 35-yard line. So Denver goes down and scores a touchdown. This drive also took 10 plays, took 4 first downs. They were more run dominant, so it took 5 minutes of time. And so let's mark that in. So 5 minutes of time. So they got 65 yards and they did 10 plays and they had 4 first downs. And so that takes us down to 450. And we'll see how the extra point goes. And Denver's extra point, Will Lutz is a 1-19. He hasn't missed because he also gets a 1-19 on the secondary roll. So there's still a chance that he could miss because I always like to bake that into the game. But he makes it. So they get a touchdown, extra point, and that ties the game up at 7. And again, you would go through the same thing in determining who scored the touchdown. So because they're run dominant, you'd roll the dice, and I think it's 75%. Like, it's a 1-9. It would have been one of the running backs. They would have run it in, and then you're going to roll against. I can't remember. I think it is their. I don't want to say because I think it's their inside run, but there's a way it could be the quarterback too, right? Especially if it's a team like Buffalo. Well, Denver too with Bo Nix. It could have been the quarterback who ran it in. So there's a way to come up with who scored the touchdown. And there we've got 10 minutes of the first quarter done. And so let's just go through another series of downs here. So Denver's going to kick off. So we're going to just come from over here. It's a 9. Kicks a 61, so it's at the 4-yard line. And I should probably have a cheat sheet of some kind out here so I remember, because when I'm talking and thinking, that never goes good. All right, and so now we've got Buffalo's going to return it. Get this down here. So they're going to return it and roll a d20, and it's a 10. And their return is 27 yards. So 27 and 4 is a 31, so you get to the 31-yard line. But we need to turn over an action card just to see if there's a penalty. And this one here, this is the kicking row. It could have been a block kick. Well, you don't block kickoffs. And so you just ignore that. And so we put in our sheet here. We have Buffalo. They're throwing 31. And now we roll first for Buffalo to see if they're going to be run or pass dominant. And they're going to be pass again. And let me just take a minute to talk a little bit about this, because I'm sure you're thinking like, okay, wait a second. Buffalo's offensive pass is a 7. Buffalo's offensive run is a 10. Like, wouldn't they do more runs? And the answer to that is yes, and they do. But remember, run and pass is baked into both. And this is also, you never know as a coach what's going to happen. We have the ability at this point in time now to know how the stats went, and this is a stats-based game. And so this is just a little bit of a way so you don't play the game against each other. But there's one note to that, is when we get to the final 5 minutes of a half, the team gets to select. So Buffalo then would probably go run, depending how much time's left. If they don't have enough time, they're going to go pass, because if you've seen on these different charts, some of them are pretty close. Like, this one here, if it was a run, it was 2 minutes and 40 seconds versus 2:20. But this one here, there's a minute and 20 seconds difference. And, there can be some pretty big differences that could save time on the clock. So when it gets down to it, you might want to be passing more. But anyway, they did choose pass. And so they're a 7 versus an 8. And it is a 5 versus a 5. And we got it both again. I was hoping to get a few more variables here, but let's just see. Turn over an action card. Nothing. Kicks blocked. And so what all these other rows are here is if there was a sack or we had an interception check, if there was an interception, it shows you, and this tells you where it actually occurred and what effect it has on the result. In this case here, so if it's an interception, then it's 5 yards. So you take the total number that was here. So in this case, it was 68, and minus 5 would have been 63. So this would have happened at the 2-yard line on that last drive. But it also says else one row. So what this means is if it's D, meaning defense. So if the play was already on the defense, so in this case it wasn't, it was on both. So if it was on the defense, then you go minus 5 yards. But because it was on both, you're going to go up one row. And so row means you're going to always progress up one because the best are down in the bottom. You can always progress up one. So instead of it being 68 yards, the interception would have happened at 44 yards. So that's kind of how that works. You can determine where everything was at. So in this case, again, we just go to a both and we turn both over. And this time, not such a good card for Buffalo. So Denver's defense came on strong, maybe figured a little bit out what Buffalo was doing, and they just end up with 13 yards. So we mark that down. So they end up with 13 yards. So they end up at their own 44-yard line. They had 4 plays. They had 1 first down. And in this case here, it shows you what the yards to go is. And the yards to go is 10. So we put that down as yards to go is 10. If it has a roll, then you're going to roll a D12 and determine the yards to go. And then if you decide to go for it because say it was 4th and 1, 4th and 2, or 4th and 4, because that just seems what the Chicago Bears did all last weekend, we turn this chart over, and you can see down here we have a roll for success when you have yards to go. And so you're just going to roll a D12. So it's real quick. If you got 2 or 3 yards to go, you get a 1 to 6, then you know you're successful. You're going to make it, and then you're going to roll again to see how many yards you do get. So he would have got 4. If you roll 1 to 10, he got 4 yards. They just got enough. 11, it's an A plus. So an A plus is actually a big play run, and then there's a big play pass. So those are all the things that will get worked out. But you can see that there are options, though, that are pretty quick to come up with results when you need it for things like that. All right, so where do we get to? We had 13 yards. We needed the time on this one here. So it was 13 yards, and they were passed. So it was 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So we mark off 2 minutes and 10 seconds. So that takes us down to 2:40 to go. And the result in this case, they're going to punt the ball away. And punting is just like it is in the what did you call it, Joe? The full games? Go back here. Full play. Yeah, with the full play football games. Anyway, it's a 5. So the punt is 42 yards. And need to do a little correction on his chart there. Fair catch is 1 to 12. So I'm going to roll again. If it's a 1 to 12, it's a fair catch. So it is. So it's a 42-yard punt, and it's a fair catch. So 42 and 44 is 86. So that puts Denver at their own 14-yard line. And normally what I do, well, like I said, with the Excel spreadsheet, when you're running the Excel spreadsheet, you just put in that the punt was 44 yards or whatever it was, and it calculates it for you. If I'm going to be playing it, normally I have my game board out here so I can actually mark out the yards rather than trying to keep track of it on here. But that's what we got. So there's no return, so don't have to worry about a return. And now we're going to roll for Denver. 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go in the first quarter. So they roll in 8. So Denver rolls in 8, so they're going to go pass. And so their pass is a 6. Buffalo's pass is a 6. So we need 6s for each for them to have influence. And here we have Buffalo with a 5, and Denver has a 7. And so we're going to turn over a card and see if there's anything up here, and there's not. There's nothing influencing this drive. So it's just going to be defense because Buffalo has the influence and Denver doesn't. So we turn over the result card, and you can see what happens on the defense this time. The total drive went for -5 yards. 3 plays, no first down, so it was a 3 and out. They got 15 yards to go. So it was obviously a sack, and so they end up at their own 9-yard line. 3 plays, no first downs, 15 yards to go. This was passed, so it just took 1 minute and 10 seconds. So that means we have 1 minute and 30 to go, and they will punt. And they need a good punt to get out of their own end. So now we go over to here and roll on the punt. Is 11 is a 48. His fair catch is a 1 to 12. So it's a 48, and it's a 3, so it's a fair catch. So punt to 48 yards. So 48 and 9 is 57, so that puts Buffalo at their own 43. So they made a few yards on that exchange by their defense getting them off the field as quickly as they did. And there's a couple drives. Let's keep going here because those last drives were pretty pretty quick, and maybe we'll get a chance to see how some of these other things work here. But I hope you're starting to get a feel for how the game works. Once you get into it, it goes pretty quick. Um, I haven't seen any of the other games, so I don't know. I know a lot of games they do use zones and whatnot for it, and those are going to be quicker to play than this one is. This is going to require you to go through and get the full yards. But remember, this is just meant to match up with quick decks as well. So just a little bit more in depth. I guess that's kind of my 49 signatures. It's going to be a little bit more in depth, but it's still going to be quick play. And you should be able to play a full game in, I would think, 30 minutes once you get it down. Um, and so remember, this is still prototyping. So like a lot of these cards here and the nomenclature and how they might look and the size of them, that's all probably going to change just to try and make it simple. The things that I've learned along the way, the things I'm going to be putting into 49 football to simplify it, to make it so that if you're away from the game for a while and you come back to it, it'll be quicker to pick up. So that's my intention with this as well. Okay, Buffalo has it. They got the ball at their own 43-yard line, and so let's roll for them. And it's a 2. So this time they are going to run. So we're going to roll on this column right here. So it's a 10 versus an 8. Denver's defense is pretty good with those 8s there. See how they work out, and they both get it. So Denver gets it, and Buffalo gets it. So let's take a break here just for a second before we go on any further, because I want to talk a little bit about, let's go back to here, the influence that highlight football is having on what I'm doing here. And this game, I haven't been able to find out my very first game, but it was pre-COVID when I first played my first game of this. The version here of the cards that we have in play, this is like right around the start of COVID. It wasn't too long into COVID. So it's been quite a while that I've actually had this game as it is right now. And I know I've said it way too many times that, it's just ready to go. I just got to finish it up. But there's a part of me that is like, I don't feel right. There's something's missing. Something's just not right. So I thought if I, show everybody the game, maybe, get some good insight, because I know there's some great minds out in our community here. And so I'd really appreciate anybody who's got some thoughts about this. A couple of things that have come from thinking about highlights for, well, better part of 6 months now. And that is, and I don't know if this is going to incorporate into, drive by drive or not, but I was thinking, like it's a buildup of suspense. So, maybe you roll first to see if a team gets past the first down, because it really seems like, and you hear announcers say it all the time, getting that first down is critical. Oh, they got the first down, that'll give them some momentum. And that usually does happen. Although when I look at the stats, I don't think they actually prove that out, but stats don't always tell the whole story. And so, I was thinking about putting that in, but then that's, it's a whole extra sequence of things to go on. And so my current thinking is that might be something good to put in with, if it get a none or you get the both. Let's get the light off of there. Yeah, you get the none or the both. Maybe that's the way to go. See if they get a start on it. But then again, I think, maybe I'm starting to think too much into it, but I'm also at that time thinking, like, I want to build a story. I want there to be, more flavor to what's going on, because, and I think this is where I come from, is with drive by drive, it feels very numbersy, which of course it is. That's all it is. It's just numbers. And where highlights is going to give the opportunity to not have that. Just like highlight hockey, it's just, you still feel the game because you're still interacting with the players and seeing who's making good plays and what's going on. And I think that's what I felt has been missing from the this version of drive by drive or quick drive football, or whatever you want to call it, is that feel. And maybe football is not a feel game for everybody. Maybe this is going to be good for somebody. So, that's where I'm kind of stuck at right now, is that, okay, we got this numbers game, works good, gets you through a game. You can switch back to playing either the quick decks or the on the turf at any time, or other way around. If it's a blowout, you can turn it back the other way. And the yards all match up, the times all match up. You can get real good stats. So it won't change you there. But and I think that's where the highlight comes in. Is going to have way more of the flavor to what's going on in a football game. So I'm kind of excited for that. And then I'm starting thinking, well, do I need to have both? And so, yeah, I'm at the way overthinking it stage right now. And the answer is probably yes. I think there's, well, we'll see. I think the answer is probably yes, but I guess we'll find out from the community. And I don't know how to get the best answer to that right now. But I do like the drive by drive. I do play it. For like the playoff games right now, I have no time to go through and go and play quick decks or on the turf, and I'm hoping to play on the turf for the Seattle game and then the Bears, and I just run out of time. So this actually it feels like I'm playing a game, and it feels pretty good. But anyway, that was just some rambling thoughts that I wanted to get out there. Just again, I'm doing this to try and get some input. Okay, let's go through the rest of Buffalo's sequence here. So Buffalo is doing a run, and they have influence, and the defense has influence. So we're back to both again. So we turn over and see if there is a issue, and here it's a fumble return on the return. So it's not a kick, so I don't have to worry about it. Let's look at one where, let's find one that says a sack. And so here's one here, and it's sack, quarterback check. So we're going to check the 1 to 8 on man, I couldn't think of Jim Kelly's name forever. And now that I've got it in my mind, I can't think of Josh Allen's name forever. Anyway, so 1 to 8. So I'd roll it, and we're going to say came out of 3. So he is potentially sacked. So I'll show you how that influences the play. So now you're going to turn over the next card of the game action card, and you look at the sack row. And then we turn over the result card. And so it says it should say defense. So if it's a defensive row, then it's going to be minus 12 yards. So if this was the defensive row, it would have been minus 12 on the 26. But it's not. So it's else you move up 2 rows. And so this case was both, because they both had influence in the play. But because I got a sack, you're going to move up 2 rows. So in this case, it would be a 26-yard gain. So 7 plays, 2 first downs. There's a sack in there, and it would have taken up, they were run, so it's 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So you can see that, sacks do come into play, interceptions do come into play. So you are going to get all the turnovers in the game, because that's, important to a football game. You're not going to get all the sacks. Just anything, and same with penalties. You're not going to get all the penalties, but there are penalties that are going to come up that are going to influence a drive in the same way as well. So that's really how the game works. There are a couple other things, maybe I'll show you here, and that is you're going to roll. So actually, what I should have done if there was a sack check, and you're going to roll to see who had. No, sorry, this is from a different chart. This is different. Forget I just erase that last 30 seconds. Okay, forget that. This chart could come into play based on some of the items that are up along the top here. It might make you roll to see what actually happened, because you can see there's some different ones. So there could be a challenge, there could be a big play, and you've probably already noticed on the bottom of these cards here, there's a big play if it's a run or a pass. And so that's how those come in. So there are other things that could drive this chart here. A little chart here on the timing. So if a team's in hurry up, it just reminds you there's 10 seconds off. A chart here for a Hail Mary. If you're going to do a Hail Mary at the end of the game, your chances of success are you're going to roll a D12, you got to roll a 1, and then you got to roll again. And if it's a 1 to 2, if defense have influence in order to get the Hail Mary and the yards, I just haven't figured that part out yet. This other side, though, is something that you will refer to towards the end of the half, because a drive is going to go through the 2-minute warning. Teams go and hurry up, or they're in slowdown. Trying to score at the end of the half, that kind of thing. And so it changes the normal amount of time it takes to go through 26 yards for 3 minutes and 30 seconds on a run, or 250 on a pass. And that's what this chart here does. So without going into too much detail, this is if you're regulation time, and there's another instance where regulation time comes in, but in the final 5 minutes, so you're using the top 2 rows here. And so it goes by the number of yards that was gained on the play. So so it was 26 yards was the gain, and they were not in hurry up, because hurry up is down in the bottom here. This is trying to slow down. So you had 7 plays and you would have burned off 4 minutes and 50 seconds worth of clock. Now, you can the opposition can call timeouts, and that subtracts 30 seconds for every timeout and 30 seconds for the 2-minute warning. If you're in hurry up mode, you would have gone through 5 plays, used 1 minute and 40 seconds, and you can still use your timeouts, and you would have got a first down, 1 first down. So that's what that chart is, to try and accommodate right at the end of the halves and game's end, so that team pulls one of these cards and they need 40 yards to go, and they get 44, say, on this one here, but it takes them too long, because if they had passed, it was 4:10. Well, if you use this chart here and they're in hurry up mode, so 40 to 49, it would be here, it'd only be 2 minutes and 30 seconds, plus they get to use their timeouts if they have them. So it just brings that kind of end game drama. And certainly after watching the games this weekend, I had a friend I was golfing with a couple days ago. He says, says the NFL now feels like a lot more like the NBA. I was like, yeah, how so? He says, because teams just seem to be able to score at will in the last couple of minutes, and I said, yeah, but doesn't that make it exciting? And he was like, yeah, it just makes it different. I'm old school. So anyway, it's something for everybody, right? But that does bring that into the game a little bit more, and as you get towards the halves. All right. Was there anything else that I wanted to talk about or show you tonight? I don't think so. I think that's pretty good for a first look at 49, whatever it's going to be called, football, possession by possession. I can't remember some of the other names that Chris had out there, but let's get the reflection off here. So anyway, yeah, if you got some thoughts on it, and definitely if you got some thoughts on the game and what looked like it didn't work, or maybe the parts that you did like, that kind of thing, I'd really appreciate some feedback on it. That would be great. Again, remember, next week I am not going to be live, because Marcia and I are going to be out having some fun we already live in the desert, but we're going to go to a warmer desert than where we're at right now. So that'll be fun. And then I should be back on the 27th. So I'd like to thank everybody for taking some time to come by tonight and watch a little bit of drive-by-drive football. And yeah, I think that's about it. So we'll see you next time on 49 Sports Games.